right, guys, well, I'm back today with a brand new offering from Palmetto State Armory, the PSA Sabre AR-V. I was really excited about this when I saw it released because I love the AR-V lineup and I also love what PSA is doing with their Sabre lineup. I've been reviewing and testing and buying AR-Vs since they were first released, and they are a great representation of what a high-value blowback 9mm can be in today's market. Now, this one has a few updates and upgrades and color changes over the standard AR-V, and we'll talk about the specs and features of this particular AR pistol, but I'm first going to talk about the AR-V, why I like it so much, and then why I like what they are doing with their Sabre lineup. I want to give a huge shout out to PSA for sending this out to the channel for us to test and evaluate. I love working with these guys, and as soon as I saw this was released, I put in a request for one, and they were kind enough to send one out. I don't have to send it back, so we can do long-term testing and evaluation. Now, let's dig into this particular setup, and again, why I like the AR-V so much. And first off, the AR-V has had a long history on the channel, and the reason why I kind of gravitate towards that is because it does truly have a last round bolt hold open that works. A lot of ARs on the market, a lot of ARs that run the standard Glock mags don't have last round bolt hold opens, and you get a click on an empty chamber. Then you have to insert the mag, chamber a fresh round from the mag, and get back into the fight. And that can slow you down if you're truly using this in defensive scenarios or even pistol courses or different types of carbine classes and competitions. So having something with the last round bolt hold open is nice, and they've accomplished that by running the AR-V mags, which are almost identical to the CZ Scorpion mags. They're interchangeable in the AR-V and AKV platforms. On top of that, they've enhanced the mag well. They've done a really nice bolt release as well as a really nice mag release on all of their AR-Vs, and they're incredibly reliable and affordable down at the range. So in my opinion, it just makes sense to do the Sabre version. So what we are looking at here is from their Sabre lineup, which is their more premium lineup they've been doing recently, and they all have this same color scheme, and it's kind of either love it or hate it. I personally love this color scheme. So let's start at the front and work our way to the back on this particular 8-inch Sabre AR-V. So at the front, we are rocking 1/2x28 threads, and I have a tri-lug adapter on here because I tri-lug all of my 9mm because my 9mm cans are tri-lug compatible. So that's kind of what I go with. This is also an 8-inch barrel, and I think this is the perfect length for a setup like this. I feel like sometimes the 10 and 11-inch barrels on AR pistols might get a touch long for 9mm when you're running a can. The 8-inch, though, gives you a little bit more velocity than a traditional handgun, and it starts to push the limits of what 9mm can do, especially with defensive loads. So it gives you that little extra oomph, but still being very compact and nimble to clear corners, clear steering columns in a car, or just take on like a bug out situation or keep as a truck gun. Now that barrel itself is actually 4150 chrome moly steel, and they've always done really good, whether it's their traditional blowback 9mm that take Glock mags or their AR-Vs. I've always had good luck with the barrels, decent accuracy for a 9mm. You're not taking this out to 200 yards, but it's definitely capable in the accuracy department. There's no gas system because this is a direct blowback gun, but the Sabre does some enhancements with bearing delays, which we'll talk about in the later part of this review. But just know that the traditional Sabres are just direct blowback, and this operating system is the same with no gas system. Now, surrounding that barrel is the Sabre rail system, and that's where the Sabre really starts to shine. I love what they've done with their rail systems. They're an M-LOK rail system that is very similar in nature to like a Geisley rail system. They've got a steel bolt lockup, anti-rotation tabs that lock over the upper receiver so it can't rotate left or right. And then they also have QD slots at the rear, but these QD slots actually have steel inserts. So when you're running your QD in and out, a lot of times those QD connections are actually steel with steel bearings, and they can wear out aluminum pretty quick if you're constantly putting them in and out. These steel inserts go a step above. Same with the steel cross bolts. They are doing some really impressive things with their rail systems in their Sabre lineup, and I believe they're a ton of value for money. Also love the anodization and the finish of this particular rail system, and the finish is spectacular. It's got a monolithic pick rail at the top, and I love that because I can mount all of my devices at the top and pressure switches, and you're good to go. So the rail systems are great. Now, what we are looking at is going to be a billet upper and lower receiver, machined out nicely, great fit and finish, and you do have the extended charging handle that you are going to find in the Sabre lineup. Now, we are using the Radian Raptor LT charging handles in all of their Sabre lineups, and the bolt on this guy is going to be one of the Sabre ARV 9mm BCGs, and that's going to be a chrome 8620 steel bolt with an enhanced firing pin and an external 5.56 style extractor, so you can swap those out with any 5.56 extractor that you want if they happen to break over time. And then this bolt care group is going to be compatible with most aftermarket fire control groups, so you're not going to have a ton of issues there with compatibility if you wanted to swap things out over time. Now let's move to the lower receiver, because the Sabre continues to put improvements in the lower over the traditional ARVs or ARs in general. We've already talked about the mag release and bolt release being really nice. They work out really well, but these are the traditional ARV controls. Where it starts to get really nice is going to be the trigger. Now, overall, the lower itself is actually 7075 T6 aluminum with that moss green Cerakote, and then these are going to be running a 2-stage DLC trigger with JP reduced power springs and that Radian Talon safety selector. Now, this is pretty nice because the enhanced firing pin means you are going to have reliable primer strikes on 9mm. And speaking of 9mm, we ran a lot of rounds through this, a ton of rounds through this, and that's thanks to AAC for sending out the ammo. I ran a lot of their 115 grain with no issues whatsoever, feed, function, or primer strikes, and then I ran a lot of their 147 grains with a can. Super quiet, ran great as well, and again, no light primer strikes. So the combination of the JP enhanced reduced power springs as well as the enhanced firing pin make a great combination of a very comfortable, lightweight trigger, but very reliable primer strikes. So well thought out between the upper and lower there. And that safety selector works out really nice. Now, where it gets really cool in this particular Sabre, and you've heard me say bearing delay, the bearing delay is not in the upper, as you may think. It's actually in the Maxim Defense roller delayed buffer system that they include inside the buffer tube. So one thing to note, when you pick up your ARV Sabre Edition, it will be a little bit more difficult to chamber the first round because you're overcoming that bearing locking system inside the buffer tube itself. But once you get that first round chambered, as it runs, it's much smoother. If you're not familiar, a direct blowback gun relies on the explosion and force of the round going off to immediately move the bolt to the rear, and that can be pretty violent and jarring in a 9mm. You think, oh, 9mm, it's not that bad, but you don't have a gas system to slow down the gas to push on the BCG on a direct blowback. You simply get that impact almost instantaneously right back into your shoulder. The bearing delayed system in the buffer slows that process down, allows more gases to escape down the barrel before moving the bolt rearward, slowing the entire system down by a few milliseconds, but dramatically reducing like that felt recoil and smoothness of the gun itself. And it really pays off with that simple addition of that Maxim Defense buffer system. Now, surrounding that buffer system is going to be one of the SBA4 braces. These braces are pretty nice. I like them. They do a good job, and they are included in this particular setup. Now, PSA generally offers things as complete lowers, complete uppers, or complete setups, and I believe right now this is only offered as a complete setup, and it was 100% functional down at the range. It just chugged along, and it ran great. In summary, I like it. I love to see what PSA is doing with their Sabre lineups, and I love to see what they're doing, pushing the limits of what they can do on a budget in a high-value situation. Again, if this one was a little bit out of your price range and you felt like getting something in a little bit more entry-level, they do offer the traditional ARV lineup if you wanted to check that out. But if you like some of the enhancements, like the nicer rail, nicer trigger, bearing delayed system, and charging handle, as well as the color scheme, the ARV Sabre lineup may be right for you. Thanks to PSA again for sending this out. Thanks to AAC for the ammo support. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, whether you like this color scheme or not. That seems to be the most polarizing topic. Let me hear what you guys got to say. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.